Okay, welcome to this forum on AI and Neoliberalism. And I am Chien-Yi, working here in the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures. And I'm going to introduce our speaker here, Professor Liu, researcher Liu in academic Sinica. Professor Liu, she graduated from political science of University of Texas at Austin. She previously worked at the Institute of International Relations at National Chien-Yi University, and where she still teaches. She is also the author of Surviving Democracy, Migrating Climate Change in a Neoliberal Road, published by Routledge in 2020. Her research interests include EU politics, climate change, degrowth, greenwashing, neoliberalism, and animal rights. And then she is going to talk about the relationship of AI and serfdom in a theoretical way. So let's welcome Professor Liu.
Thank you, Professor Li. And good afternoon, colleagues and friends. I feel very honored to be part of this conference on such an important topic. So thank you, Professor Liu, for inviting me. I will start my presentation with the story of neoliberalism and serfdom. So Friedrich Hayek's The Road to Serfdom was an extremely important book that had arguably changed the trajectory of human history, not because it provided wisdom or insights, but because it served as a magnet that attracted like-minded people who were interested in reversing a trend. So this is the trend. The trend that economic equality was materialized, maintained, and enhanced. This is the income share of the top 1% in rich countries. The first part of the trend, downward trend, meaning that it was becoming more equal. The first part of the trend has had a very unfortunate cause, 2 devastating world wars. The second part of the trend was a result of Keynesian economic policies, which emphasized the role of government in economy, particularly in striving for full employment. So Hayek despised the Keynesian ways so much that he wrote a book explaining why Keynes was, in fact, leading the world to serfdom. Where's the freedom for the rich to keep all their wealth? Where's the freedom for those who don't want to pay taxes and be regulated by the government? What about free market? What about free competition? He complained. Hayek came up with theories backing up his arguments, which were music to the ears of bankers, industrialists, right-wing politicians, and scholars. They built think tanks and research institutions, hired propagandists, or what Hayek himself called second-hand dealers in ideas. Together, they started a counter-revolution against Keynesianism. This counter-revolution, known as neoliberalism, was extremely successful. As you can see, starting from Thatcher and Reagan, the downward trend was indeed reversed. Wealth started to concentrate once again. Decades went by. The rich was taxed less and less and subjected to less and less regulations. Technology advanced with mind-boggling speed. At first sight, it looked as though Hayek was right. Neoliberalism did bring out the best of human potentials and talents. Freedom has prevailed. A closer look, however, reveals that the combination of wealth concentration and profit-driven technological developments has led us to serfdom. Yanis Varoufakis made compelling arguments that we now live in techno-feudalism. Today, it is hard to imagine that the internet used to be commons, a space belonging to everyone and no one. In that space, we used to not have to give away our information. Under neoliberalism, however, where everything is commodified and marketized, the internet became privately owned. A new enclosure took place. This time it was not land that was being enclosed, it was our digital identity. Today, our digital identity does more work than our old paper ID ever did, and it doesn't even belong to us. As Varoufakis put it, strewn across countless privately owned digital realms, our digital identity has many owners, none of whom is us. A private bank owns your ID codes and your entire purchasing record. Facebook is intimately familiar with whom and what you like. Twitter remembers every little thought that caught your attention, every opinion that you agreed with. Apple and Google know better than you do what you watch, read, buy, whom you meet, when and where. To do anything in what used to be our digital commons, we must now plead with big tech and big finance for the ability to use some of the data about us that they now own. To wire money to a friend, to subscribe to the New York Times, or to buy socks for your granny using a debit card, you now have no option but to give something of yourself in return. Usually your consent to be monitored further by some big fintech conglomerate that will help you verify that you are really who you are. Here's Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, one of the most exclusive elite clubs for the richest 1% or perhaps 0.5% that oversee policies of countries nearly all over the world. Listen to what he has to say about our right to privacy.
Dans ce nouveau monde, on doit accepter une transparence, et je dirais même une transparence totale. Tout va être transparent. Et il faut s'habituer, il faut se comporter ainsi. Ça devient, comment dirais-je, intégré dans votre personnalité, mais si on n'a rien à cacher, il ne faut pas avoir peur.
So how do you like a world with decreasing transparency of governments and big corporations and increasing transparency of individuals? To understand why we give our so-called consent to hand over data about us to them for free, to be used against us, to train machines, to create AI, to further data mining and manipulation even more efficiently, we can go back to 1513. In their book, Data Grab, Ulises Mejias and Nick Codry compare a 1513 document with Google's terms of service. When the Spanish conquerors went to the Americas, they read the document requerimiento out loud to the indigenous people. If you do not submit to Spanish rule, I certify to you that with the help of God, we shall powerfully enter into your country and shall subject you to the yoke and obedience of the church and of their highnesses. And we shall take away your goods and shall do you all the mischief and damage that we can. The key point is that they read this out loud to the indigenous people in Spanish, a language that the indigenous people did not understand. That's a key commonality the authors tried to draw between the Spanish colonizers and the terms of service of big tech like Google. In 2007, the terms of service of Google's Chrome read like this: you give Google a perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, royalty-free and non-exclusive license to reproduce, adapt, modify, translate, publish, publicly perform, publicly display, and distribute any content which you submit, post, or display on or through the services. Not only was it difficult to understand the true meaning and implications of these words, but my refusal to click on accept also would not prevent others from clicking accept and collectively reorganize our lives around whatever rules Google imposed on us. More recent versions of Google's term of service are not as rapacious as the 2007 version. That's because they no longer need to. The world has already gone down the path the big tech wanted it to. They have neoliberalism, Hayek, Reagan, Thatcher, and their cohorts to thank. If I were to give neoliberalism a simple and encompassing definition, I'll define it as the art, as in con artist, of exclusion through inclusion, with upward power and wealth redistribution as its goal. The pretense of inclusion is the key. It's instrumental to bring people on board to support or even celebrate policies that are harmful to them. The army of neoliberal con artists did a fantastic job selling these ideas to the world. That market is self-regulating and it alone knows the best. That the sole job of a government is to make sure that nobody intervenes in the free market. And that if you are not successful, you alone are responsible for your failure. When behind the scenes, their operation logic was nothing like that at all. The world that neoliberal elites were constructing was what I call scammed, a system with the states and corporation above, not within, market and democracy. It's in fact anti-free market and anti-free competition. Big pharmaceutical companies raising the prices of life-saving drugs 10 times high overnight with the acquiescence of the government is not free competition. It's state-sanctioned monopoly. It's their CEOs reckoning it's time for their compensations to grow a couple of $1 million fatter. It's free in the sense that as a patient, you can decide. You want to live or you want to die. Your freedom to choose. Under the scammed system, the line between big corporations and government became so blurred that you could argue they actually merged to form a global ruling class in a globalized world, free from the rules of the market and free from the rule of law of democracies in a meaningful way, because they are the ones who make laws. There's almost something socialist about the way those at the upper tier of the scammed system are being taken care of by the government. Of course, they won't use terms such as scammed. They have a much better sounding term, public-private partnership. To get a sense of how deeply the scammed system has seeped into our society and our collective consciousness, just think about how common the revolving door phenomena has become. Think about Trump and Elon Musk, the brand new appointee for the Department of Government Efficiency. How can Americans expect that he will place people before his private businesses? Think about both the Biden and the previous Trump administrations. Think about how a board member of arms manufacturing company became defense minister. Oil company CEO became Secretary of State. Fossil fuels lobbyist became head of EPA. And billionaire and hedge fund manager will become Treasury Secretary. The list goes on, and no one feels surprised. Same story here in Taiwan and elsewhere under the reign of neoliberalism. It's hard to imagine that conflict of interest used to be a thing, that revolving door used to cause outcry. It is this scammed system that emerged and consolidated during the high time of neoliberalism that is now transitioning the world from capitalism into techno-feudalism. A key turning point was 2008 financial crisis. Before the crisis, a combination of computer technology and algorithm with the scammed instigated deregulation already turned the financial market into a crazy casino. In 2002, humanity's total income was around 50 trillion US dollars. That year, financiers around the world wagered 70 trillion on bets. By 2007, humanity's total income grew to the neighborhood of 75 trillion. That year, the amount of money financiers took to gamble was 750 trillion, 10 times the total human income. To cope with the mess created by the crazy casino, the scammed system came up with, surprise, surprise, a neoliberal method. After the 2008 financial crisis, central banks printed money and gave them to big banks. It's called quantitative easing. Supposedly, these big banks would loan out the money to businesses to invest to resuscitate the economy. But the economy was so bad that nobody was interested in investing. You might remember when the interest rates actually went negative. It was during this time, people like Bezos and Musk made a huge fortune on top of their pre-existing wealth. Like other capitalists, they took the money to buy back their own shares. The financial casino went even crazier than before the financial crisis, thanks to quantitative easing. The prices of every asset went up: shares, bonds, derivatives, everything. As Yanis Varoufakis put it, the wealthy got immensely wealthier in their sleep. Between 2010 and 2021, the paper wealth of Bezos and Musk, that is the total price of their shares, rose from less than 10,000 million to around 200,000 billion each. That's an expansion of 20,000 times within the space of 1 decade. During the pandemic, the money printing and share buybacks did not stop, but went further up. Hence the headline of this piece in The Guardian: "Heads we win, tails you lose." With money like that, people like Bezos and Musk were able to pay for server farms, fiber optic cables, software developers, AI labs, and all the rest. Luring and goading entire societies to move off the real world and into the privately owned digital world became a tangible dream. Once that's materialized, we're no longer in capitalism, but techno-feudalism. Markets are replaced by cloud fiefdoms, and profits replaced by cloud rents. We are all cloud serfs. To make a living, we are increasingly dependent and therefore vulnerable to those who own the platforms and take a cut for each interaction. Whether it involves arts we create, research papers we write, podcasts we make, or rides we provide to passengers. It is true that unlike medieval feudal lords who would break the legs of those who failed to pay their rents, Google, Amazon, Alibaba, and Apple would never be so violent. They don't have to. Algorithm is a powerful disciplining tool. This is true not just for Uber drivers and sellers on Amazon, Taobao, and Apple. Even for young academics, paying money to join LinkedIn, ResearchGate, and academia might become increasingly worth contemplating under techno-feudalism. Digital academic networking ability, which involves rents, combined with the ability to publish, which also increasingly involves rents under techno-feudalism, compromises research and distorts the contour of knowledge. In fact, even when algorithm is not being used as a tool for punishment, its mere existence is already catalyzing the unraveling of society. You and I may search for the same thing online. What you and I get to see are likely completely different. We are living our lives in a newly incubated form of isolation, whether we are shopping or trying to understand what's happening in the world. Under the reign of the neoliberal scammed system, the role of mainstream media had long ceased to be objectively informing the public about what actually happened and what the facts are. The task of corporate-owned media has been reduced to managing social narratives and the cognition of the public, fostering tribalism. Thatcher infamously said, "There's no such thing as society." Neoliberalism made her prescient. One has to marvel at the seamless way the scammed system works. AI is simply turbocharging the pre-existing system. It is not like before AI, things were okay. Then came AI, we begin to worry that things could go wrong. No, it's not like that. Because before AI, things were terrible because of neoliberalism. And things were getting worse by the day already. As Professor Liao said earlier today, technology is never neutral. We have to remember that the rise of particular technologies always has their roots in the power structure of the society. In our time, it was the neoliberal scammed system and its effectiveness in exploitation that gave rise to AI, using taxpayer money throughout the process. The technology was then handed over to private owners in the end, turbocharging the scammed system to make it even more brutal and concentrating power in the hands of even fewer individuals. In short, the soil out of which AI grew was very toxic, with ingredients such as corporate greed, dark money, and diminished and still diminishing accountability. Without massive deregulation, the relentless data mining needed for AI to develop would never have taken place. There is nothing democratic about the whole process. We had absolutely no say, and we still don't. As power and wealth concentration continues to deteriorate, you can't expect the consequences of neoliberalism to forever be just increased inequality. At some point, a qualitative change is bound to take place. On January 20th, Trump will become the president of the United States again. His vice president will be J.D. Vance. Just a year ago, nobody knew who Vance was. He was turned into a rising star all of a sudden with big money from a billionaire named Peter Thiel. This is how politics works now. If you have big money, that money can translate into power quite literally. Thiel is founder of an AI company called Palantir. Already in Trump's first term, Peter Thiel was known as the shadow president. That's not democracy. That's a blatant display of the scammed system, state and corporations above market and democracy. For Trump's second term, we should anticipate things to get much worse. Even under Biden, Peter Thiel's company Palantir was already wreaking havoc all over the world. It helped Israel to use AI to surveil Palestinians and generate massive kill lists. Every person in Gaza, including children, was assigned a score of 1 to 100. Being on a WhatsApp group with someone thought to be Hamas member would increase your score. When your score reached a certain level, automatically you're on a kill list. In just the first months of the war, the AI targeting system identified over 37,000 Palestinians to be executed. Entire families sleeping in their own homes were targeted and eliminated. When asked about the role of Palantir's AI system in Gaza by a Cambridge University student, this was Peter Thiel's reaction.
So So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, without going into all, I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel. It's not for us to second guess everything, and I believe that broadly the IDF gets to decide what it wants to do, and that they're broadly in the right. That's sort of the perspective I come back to. And if I fall into the trap of arguing you on every detailed point, I would actually be conceding the broader issue that the Middle East should be micromanaged from Cambridge. And I think that's just simply absurd. And so I'm not going to concede that point. And what was the other?
So using AI to make massive killing was so taken for granted and so internalized to be a normal routine conduct that he did not even anticipate such an obvious question that was on so many people's minds. At a time when we are being pressured into cheerleading AI, imagine what humans can use AI to do this, to do that. The most advanced AI technology is already deployed at killing innocent humans en masse. Here's AI-powered robot guns. That was there long before October 7th. That's Peter Thiel, the founder, and this is the CEO of Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir. And it's not just Palantir. Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are all implicated in the most modern and lethal warfare with their cloud services. And it's not just Gaza either. In Ukraine, Palantir uses AI to help create kill lists as well. There's Alex Karp, again, the CEO. Due to the application of their products in Gaza, when Palantir marketed its targeting system to Ukraine, it boasted battle-tested. No wonder Palantir is called the AI arms dealer of the 21st century. Sadly for Taiwan, a highly neoliberalized society that had no chance of escaping the scammed structure, our leaders are also ensnared with Palantir people. There was a time when cozy relationships between a government and a big corporation would be treated as a scandal. Neoliberalism changed the optics. Palantir has a plan for Taiwan. At a time when hopes for government to be transparent have become delusional after decades of neoliberalism, we are all kept in the dark as to what plan Palantir has in store for us. Like AI, however, we can do pattern learning and soon realize that their plan will be good for them, bad for us. Remember supply-side economics? The economic concept, or rather the PR slogan popularized by Ronald Reagan. It's the suppliers, those who have things to sell, that are heroes and engines of the economy. Tobacco, guns, pesticides, sugar, GMOs, fossil fuels, and weapons. Never worry about the lack of demand. Demand can always be created out of thin air, as long as you're a scammed level big corporation with a good PR team. If we want to get an idea about what Peter Thiel's vision for the world looks like, here's a sentence from his talk in 2010. We could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics. How do you like the idea of bypassing democracy using technology? Peter Thiel, the White House puppet master, together with other owners of AI technology, are getting closer and closer to becoming the masters of the universe. And don't forget the amount of energy AI demands and what that means for our planet. The carbon footprint of data centers, cables, satellite infrastructure, and computing power is enormous. One AI search burns 10 times as much energy as a routine Google search. Today, there are hundreds of millions of daily queries just on ChatGPT. The amount of electricity used just for this each day is equivalent to the daily energy consumption for around 33,000 US households. To train a single large language model like ChatGPT-3, the amount of electricity needed is equivalent to the yearly electricity consumption of over 1,000 US households. The 8,000 data centers around the world will soon consume as much energy as Japan. Some projections suggest that AI is on track to monopolize half of the world's energy production by 2040. What does the ruling class say about all this? Here's another billionaire and former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt.
My own opinion is that we're not going to hit the climate goals anyway because we're not organized to do it. And the way to do it is with the things that we're talking about now. And yes, the needs in this area will be a problem, but I'd rather bet on AI solving the problem than constraining it and having the problem.
He's probably right that we're not going to hit the climate goals. But why aren't we? Isn't the key reason we're not going to hit the climate goals them? The ruling class within the neoliberal scam system? Eric Schmidt said the quiet part out loud. They would rather there's no constraint on their AI pet projects than preventing millions of people from dying in climate disasters and tens of millions more from becoming climate refugees. This is particularly pernicious given the way AI is being used to push out desperate immigrants. Many fled to rich countries due to climate-related displacement. In the United States, border law enforcement agencies are already using AI to implement the dystopian concept of pre-crime, seen in Tom Cruise's 2002 movie Minority Report, tearing families apart at the borders. Instead of telling the truth, the World Economic Forum pronounced that AI holds the transformational potential for fixing the climate emergency. AI can tell us how fast icebergs are melting. AI can map disappearing forests. AI can predict weather patterns in drought-stricken areas. AI can help companies trace, track, and reduce their emissions. AI can predict climate events such as floods, fire, hurricanes, and other natural calamities. But what good does it do for AI to help us model all of that when AI itself speeds up the melting of icebergs, aggravates deforestation, increases droughts, floods, fires, and other calamities? And of course, AI doesn't just consume an enormous amount of energy. It also gobbles up large volumes of water, either in the producing electricity to power computing systems or for the constant cooling that the data servers require. This is the growth of water usage in just one Google data center in Oregon. This is the growth of water consumption in Microsoft. OECD estimates that by 2027, AI's water consumption will equal about half the total annual water consumption of the United Kingdom. To change the grim situation, there are many things we need to do. We need to resist, to democratize, to reclaim our commons. I want to highlight one source of problem and of hope: higher education. Higher education, broadly defined to include research institutions, has been highly neoliberalized. In fact, it played a critical role in helping to create and spread neoliberalism from the very beginning. Without the Chicago School, the meaning of antitrust would not have been turned upside down. The Chicago School, which got funding from millionaires, asserted that monopoly was actually not a great enemy of democracy. From there, the field of law and economics was born, changing the way judges, lawyers, and law schools, professors, and students understood and interpreted monopoly, opening up a friendly environment for the rise of big corporations, among them high-tech firms. The neoliberalization of the study of law also resulted in U.S. Supreme Court's landmark decision, Citizens United, in 2010, making unlimited campaign contribution legal. For the 2024 election cycle in the United States, around $20 billion were spent. Decades of neoliberalism has reduced democracy into a wrestling competition among rich donors. From a neoliberal perspective, higher education as a whole must be targeted and disciplined. Traditionally, universities served as a democratic public sphere, defending social justice and equip students with critical thinking. What clear-headed neoliberal elite would want that? As a result, higher education has been transformed into market-driven institutions, acting like vocational training centers for big corporations or a branch office of some big enterprise. Critical thinking still exists, but confined to the perimeters that do not irritate big corporations and elite wealth accumulation. This can be seen very clearly in the discussion on AI. Research projects and funding are booming. Researchers, professors, and students rush to help solve problems. Solve problems for those who own the technology and use them on us, controlling us, surveilling us, manipulating us, and even killing us. AI is being treated as a shining new field when it is mainly a manifestation of decades of expansion of power and wealth gap. At a time when capitalism looks like a stumbling and falling empire joining up with militarism, what we are witnessing emerging is something that looks quite like fascism. Imagine the harm it can do to a world with AI at its service. It is true that there are many academic research focusing on how to regulate AI, and it can be very welcoming. However, if we have learned anything from the role that higher education has played in helping corporations to greenwash when it comes to climate change, we should be very alert about the decorative type of work on AI governance. Works that avoid addressing the fundamental problem of power relations would only serve to legitimize the grip of AI on us. Remember, doing charade is part of scammed elites' job description. Big tech will protest and scream murder and then comply with whatever little rules that will be put in place, kicking and screaming, leaving us with the impression that things were bad but are now under control, and heave a sigh of relief, when in reality we don't even have a way of knowing how far their technology has advanced. It's therefore critical for academics to address the fundamental problem of power relations in the age of AI. At the same time, we also must be aware the academics are no longer who they once were. Today in the United States, 75% of faculty in universities are adjunct, many without benefits and job security. The composition used to be the opposite, with a clear majority of faculty being full-time professors with tenure or on tenure track, only less than 30% adjunct. The neoliberal disciplining tactic of precariousness worked. the intentionally cultivated sense of insecurity turned people into prudent, compliant, and dedicated careerists, just as in any other profession. Real free speech and free research suffered in a very subtle but sure way, with self-censorship, including subconscious self-censorship, becoming the smartest way to survive. Don't look at the utterly unjust system. Just focus on something micro and safe and be prolific. I couldn't believe my eyes when I read the email saying there's going to be a conference on AI and neoliberalism in Taiwan. It's a ray of light. It is already a form of resistance. At this extraordinarily dangerous and dark time of human civilization, let's not stop talking about neoliberalism, even though marginalization is what we will most definitely face or have already faced. Let's not abandon our duty as intellectuals in informing the public and getting our societies out of the neoliberalism-enabled and AI-powered serfdom. Thank you for your attention.
We thank Professor Liu for providing a very critical study of the structural formation between neoliberalism and AI technology. Now the floor is open. We also have the presence of the online audience, so we share the floor together with the online audience as well. So you're welcome to raise your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. So I have the same question. What is your take on how we can get out from under this AI-powered serfdom?
I don't really have very good answers, but I really do think that starting to talk about it is really, it's not a step that we can skip. If a small group of us have some ideas and we put it into implementation, it just won't work. I think it's very important to keep talking about it and to inform, to educate, to let more people know what's going on. Without that, I don't think activism will work. So because this is a higher education setting, and that's why I made the point of emphasizing higher education. And I think higher education, it's really sensitive to talk about it because we are in it and our peers are in it. But I think at some point we really should talk about it. It's taboo, it's sensitive, but it's an obstacle, and it's an obstacle for changing the world. But it's, as I said, it's also a source of hope. So unless we be frank about it and talk about the way research is structured, what kind of research is being encouraged, where fundings are, unless we start talking about those, I think we will always have this big problem. Does that?
So how do we solve the situation that AI or technology, such etc., can work over politics or democracy? How can we solve this situation?
It's a similar question, but I don't have very good answer, because I think that the problem is the power structure. The power structure is so corrupt worldwide. It's a global problem. Neoliberalism has made the entire political arrangement, the entire democratic structure just very corrupt. And now there's this merge. You can't really tell when Elon Musk is talking, is that or Peter Thiel when they are talking, are they representing their companies, their businesses, or are they representing the government or a world government? It's very difficult to tell. So it's that bad. I think that the problem is that bad. It's really dark. And as someone who's not even good with technology, I sometimes dream that some brilliant hacker or some brilliant computer geek will be able to do something. But I think all the books that talk about this problem, they all talk about, when they talk about resistance, they mention both from within the system and from outside of the system. So raising awareness among the public and also from inside the system. Still, pushing for change through law making is still necessary. And it's tiny steps. But the problem is when you are making those steps, their technological advancement is much, much faster than your law can catch up. That's the problem now. But other than that, other than doing from within the system, trying to push regulations, trying to change the law, and from outside, enhance awareness and become activists, and I can't think of anything else for now.
I have a question that Professor Lu, that you are painting a picture that was envisioned almost in the sci-fi cyberpunk literature previously, and also you also told us the bleakness of the picture itself. But at the same time, I'm also interested in knowing how you would like to see the specific configuration of the kind of bigger global structure that you're describing in Taiwan, that has more critical features that you want to draw our attention to?
For Taiwan, I think we are used to thinking that we are the technology island. We make so much contribution to this advancement of technology, and because we produce chips. But that's a huge taboo. But I do think collectively we need to talk about it. It takes away a lot of our water. Mm-hmm. It takes away a lot of our electricity. Mm-hmm. And the end products, what are they doing? We don't know. Mm-hmm. Some of them end up in wars, killing people. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's also difficult if just in Taiwan we make a big change and the world doesn't. Well, some conversation earlier talked about Taiwan, because of this critical position, we actually can make a lot of change by stopping, producing that many chips. But that's a conversation that we need to have collectively. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess this is a really significant issue that Professor Lu points out, and then we need more discussion on this, and then, but also, like Professor Lu already enlightened us that in Taiwan we have the particular sense about naivety about how AI working together with the neoliberalism, and in fact producing killing machines worldwide. We had the news about the even Russian missiles or North Korean missiles having chips from made in Taiwan. I guess this is probably what you were referring to here. Okay. So thanks, Professor Lu, for giving us such a enlightening talk, and let's thank her together. Okay.